listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Hi, Jackye.
Hi, Katee KK. How are you?
I am good. You know why I'm so good, Jackye?
I want to know.
Because it's hump day. It's Wednesday. I'm happy. The dogs are still sleeping and it's 11:15. I don't know if that does not ring as a good thing for later today, but that's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. It's raining in Arizona. There's a lot going on. So, welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast, people.
Yes, I
What you
am
got?
Jackye Clayton, also known as your future favorite bagel baker. I have been making bagels every day. I have failed miserably, which means the perfect bagel is coming soon.
Okay. And these are Waco bagels.
These are Waco bagels. And Katee knows, unfortunately, because I send pictures every day of the pre and the post. But we are Inclusive AF. Yes, the best New York bagel will be found in my
This side of Waco. Okay.
Waco.
Okay. Who knew? Who knew that the official bagel maker is not where our guest is from, which is what I would originally say might be the place that people would think of when it comes to bagels. But instead it's Waco, Texas. Okay, now we know. Now we know, people.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? The water has nothing to do with it. It's the love.
It's the love. It's the love you put into it, for sure. All right, folks. Well, on that note, let us welcome our guests. So, Hugues, thank you so much for joining us. Would love to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much, Jackye, for having me. Yeah, I would not have thought that the best bagel would be in Waco. So thank you for that insight today. But it's a pleasure again to join you both. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, so calling in from the unceded territory of the Lenape people. So huge shout out to that indigenous community that has paved the way forward for us. Truly excited to join you today and share all great things around the B Corp ecosystem and the impact that I'm leading and the role that I play at B Lab. And so I lead our racial equity work. I am the senior program manager for racial equity at B Lab US and Canada. I am approaching 4 years, which is quite exciting because I'm also up for sabbatical. Woohoo!
Oh, nice, love it.
And yeah, I've been on a very um, beautiful, chaotic journey in terms of navigating, the space that we're in right now, but also seeing the resilience and courage of our B Corps throughout the different phases and times. From when I first joined in 2022 to now, I've seen such transformation, and so I'm just really proud to be a part of something larger than me, and the movement is really leading in ways that I think has set the bar for the way companies do good business.
Absolutely. So I want to back up a moment and ask the question for our listeners. Can you share a little bit about what it means to be a B Corp?
What it means? Oh, this is a loaded question. At the core, what it means is for you to have a consciousness. It means to truly understand what good business truly reflects, who it entails, what impact on a societal level you're having, your why you want to have that impact. Identifying the right team to be able to help lead that work forward, because as we all know, right, it takes a village, it takes a community, and no one leader could do it alone. And really setting the bar for, again, how businesses should reflect who they are through their practices, through their policies, through, their programs that help amplify and also center frontline community voices, leaders within their organization, different stakeholders that really play a co-creative process within, the final product or service that they're offering. So at the core, I'd say B Corps are companies that operate from love. And then from there, collectively move forward on these different elements. And then there's the technical piece, of course, of our assessment and standards and fulfilling that and what that entails. And we can dive there in a little bit, but I really wanted to set that humanity tone first because, oftentimes, I think that's what's really missing in traditional companies and the majority of them, and not just speaking from a U.S. and Canada perspective, but globally speaking, right? And so this is really um, a consciousness, a calling, if you will, to our planet, to our people, to our animals, to our ancestors, and to those who we serve, including our future generation.
That is like, okay, and we're done. That pretty much saved the world with that intro. But I wanted to talk about it because in this role, you talked about the last 4 years. And if you take like the first three rolling into this year, it is flipped. And people, two things, not a trick question, open to your understanding. Katee and I have been deep in DEI work, knowing you use the acronym JEDI. So we talk about like justice, and a lot of people add that justice part of that. Isn't my area of expertise in researching that piece. But then also there seems to be, what I'm noticing lately is a confusion between JEDI/DEI/DEIB work and community. Can you help people understand the difference and maybe some of the nuance between DEIB? And it flamed from a conversation today where someone called me and said, oh, there's an organization and they want to have Pride Week because, well, what is their role? Where their community, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what community are they in? And looking at those things. So it kind of triggered something in me. So I'd love to pose the question to you and explaining the impact on community and the JEDI work, how those intersect, and also the difference between those two.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it merits a little bit more than just a high level overview, because the reality is that justice element really speaks to those communities that are impacted from um, a structure that was designed to oppress, to extract, and to separate, right? And when you are given those types of, or not given those types of tools and resources, what you start to see happen is people finding opportunities in whatever ways they can to sustain. And so, let's take, returning citizens, folks who have been incarcerated, for whatever reason, and now getting back into society and trying to really, move their life forward. Society is not designed for them to succeed, right? And so you have to create this opportunity through programs like the Income Advance program that we'll talk a little bit about, led by amazing organizations like Grayston Bakery, again, a B Corp, or, the open hiring policy, which is actually it's the inverse. So it's open hiring policy, Grayston, Income Advance program, Rhino Foods. Shout out to Rhino Foods. But these two programs are programs that are, specifically the open hiring policy one is, you apply for a job, and if you get a call, you get the job. There's no questions asked. You have literally three questions you're asked, which is, do you have ways to get to work? Can you, lift over 15 pounds? And do you have proper documentation to show that you are able to work? You have all three, you get the job, no questions asked. And what we start to see is, communities and people and individuals really creating generational wealth, right? Because we're also now incorporating fair wages, right? And again, another element within our standards. And so a lot of the work around justice, and I wanted to hone in on that justice piece because that's that critical piece that oftentimes is forgotten. We're beyond at this point, trying to understand how to diversify a board or diversify our team. We're at a time now where we need to have different stakeholders have a seat at the table and really giving them the opportunity to propel their futures forward that really creates generational wealth. So when you think of these acronyms like JEDI, DEI, DEIB, what you're really um, getting is this understanding of how to engage in all of the different formats, right? So diversity, clearly we want diverse groups, right? Equity, we want all things to be equitable, right? Belonging, to your point around the queer community, everyone wants to feel like they're a part of a community, right? So even in that specific community, justice is important. Transgender communities are consistently targeted. The queer community is consistently having to defend their right of being in ways that is unacceptable. Like they should not have to be placed in that position, right? So that justice piece really speaks to it, and that's why I refer to myself as a JEDI, I guess you would say expert, because the reality is that that justice piece is critical for healing. It's critical for constructive conversation. It's critical for accountability. It's critical for the dismantling of these systems that still perpetuate those harms, right? So it's really, in my opinion, one of the most important elements of, the term JEDI, and everything else then goes hand in hand with it.
And it's important that people realize, like, because so many times they're like, oh, is JEDI the acronym? I'm just going to throw it in there. No, you really have to research and learn, or else you're not doing anybody any service by just throwing a J into your practices without understanding what that means within our communities. And there is overreaching systems, but then within particular communities, other things that are going on wherever you are, that you can research to see that you're serving the community, which means having a better understanding of the community that you serve, and what places are people being harmed historically. Because so often, especially, I love that the B Corp role, because we hear about this work happening in nonprofit as not as much as organizations, corporations, having that piece. So I appreciate you taking the time to share and talk more about that. And I loved your description about, centered on love, and people also are looking at their company mission and aligning with company missions. It's really a time of making a change and understanding what kind of things are needed and what impact work has on changing some of those things.
Exactly. And they go in tandem, right? Like one thing I've told companies, both B Corps, non-B Corps, is like this is not a side thing that you're doing, right? Like this is not something you're sending your middle managers to just go take a course to fulfill a requirement and saying that we've did the thing, right? Like this is something you're doing in tandem with the growth of your company, right? So this really embeds these practices, these frameworks within your organization, because at the same time you're building trust, not only with your team, but with your external stakeholders. You're understanding in real time where there are gaps in your organization, in your network, in your community that really needs to address some of these harms potentially that is being caused to these groups of people. But this is the moment of that why I was talking about in my introduction, that why do you want to belong to this community or support this community or have a justice framework that really supports this pathway? That understanding and critical process is what really helped shape, in fact, the new standards. And again, I'll get there in a little bit because I'm sure we have some other questions before we jump that. But what you're going to hear as I give a little bit more concrete examples is that JEDI 1 and JEDI 2 are the two main elements for the impact topics of the new JEDI for the new standards. And JEDI 1 is data and JEDI 2 is action plan, right? So the company is informed by their data to be able to develop those action plans. So that why comes back into conversation, which allows you now to really um, see if your organization is really providing those containers, those community of belonging, even within their own organization, right? If you have individuals that look like me, Black, and you have individuals who identify as queer or disabled or woman or person of color, if you don't have these containers, these frameworks in your organization, how are you saying that you're fulfilling JEDI? How are you saying that you're even wanting to be part of, on an external level, an example, a beacon of hope, if you will, to the communities you're saying you want to serve? So it starts with you first. And the programs that I've designed, it highlights that. It starts with the individual, then it goes into the company, then it goes into the community, then it goes into society. And you cannot skip steps. And that's what allows you to truly understand whether you're fulfilling your JEDI requirement or not.
Well, and I love that the J piece in my mind is so much of the tactical, as you're saying, like here are the actions you need to take. Like, hey, ban the box. Some of these other very specific things that you can do. And, as a lot of our listeners are HR practitioners, here are the things, and here are the things that you can do today, tomorrow, to really start thinking about how do you become a more inclusive space for these different groups, for different people that have been marginalized and targeted in the past and currently. And so I think that's another piece that is just so interesting is these very practical things that are asked of B Corps to say, here's what you need to do. Here are the, and I won't say check the boxes because it's not checking the boxes, but there is, that list of here are the items that need to be practices in your organization, I think are so critical. So it's very, very cool.
Exactly. To me, that's the main reason why I joined the B Lab movement. When I first joined, I was doing, just to give a bit more context, on my story, I was doing this work for about 10 years in the global South. Shortly after the earthquake in Haiti in 2012, I packed up my things and I went to Haiti and I went to film what was happening, but also to really highlight the way frontline community members and organizations were really the frontline defense and support system to this community, right? And at the moment, there was the most amount of NGOs in the region, but yet somehow, similar to different parts of the world, specific regions were not seeing any of that aid because they were considered to be red zones marked by the UN, which means that if it's a red zone, the UN cannot go in because they cannot guarantee safety of the nonprofits or folks that are going into these regions, which means that most of these communities were having to find resources, pull out their family from the rubble, and just figure out life on their own. And so by documenting this, it gave me a true understanding, one, that my journey really started in climate justice, because that's when I really started to understand this is the type of work I wanted to be in terms of in front with the frontline communities, learn from the frontline communities, use that informed information to develop robust programs that help redirect resources to those communities, and then be the connector and convener, which is the role B Lab plays, right, between companies and brands with these frontline organizations that really just wanted to get the resources directly to them, right? And that work then led me to Brazil, where I've been spending 13 years of my life. And so right after Haiti, I packed up my things. I moved to Brazil. I didn't come back to the United States until 2019, where I implemented and did case studies on, how communities were impacted, economically and socially due to things like racism and systems that we often see that are in place in areas, for gain on communities, for gain on those who are from marginalized backgrounds. And those case studies allowed me to really tell a story by associating the voices of those people and getting, again, the same concept that I did in Haiti, redirecting resources to these favelas. And that work has been tremendous to date. It's still operating in Brazil, where it's helped now over 40,000 citizens in three different favelas across Minas Gerais, which is about 4 hours north of São Paulo. And then when I returned back to the United States, George Floyd happened, and businesses were making all these promises. So I'm trying to connect the dots in how I landed at B Lab and why justice is so important to me, because I joined B Lab because of the sheer anger I was feeling around George Floyd. And at the time, I was developing programs for my organization in Brazil, but also working with the District 1 of Manhattan public schools, developing after school and Head Start programs, incorporating these types of programs within these programs. And uh, I was upset that all of these companies were making these promises and I didn't see a clear pathway forward in how they were going to get there. No one was speaking concrete, only one. And that one is what opened the door for me to understand B Lab, which was Ben and Jerry's. Because Ben and Jerry's during George Floyd was super vocal around the ways that they wanted to redirect funds. So Ben and Jerry's, for those who don't know, created a whole ice cream line, flavored line, took the proceeds of that ice cream and then supported organizations and communities. That is direct resource, redirecting resource. That is direct impact. So when I saw that, and then I did my due diligence and researched them, and I saw this B local, and I was like, what is this B local? And so then I look up this B local, and then I come across this website, and then I'm seeing companies like Patagonia, Athletic Gap, Warby Parker, Ben and Jerry's, Grayston Bakery, I mean, Danone. I mean, the list was going on. I was so baffled. I was so shocked. I was so shocked that immediately, I reached out via LinkedIn to one of the co-founders, Jay Cohen Gilbert, and we connected, and it was love on first sight. We had an amazing conversation, and a little bit after that, I was asked to help lead the racial equity work. And ever since then, I've been boots on the ground and really developing relationships with B Corps in a way that helps me better understand these programs, right? Like, because yes, I create programs, but a lot of these B Corps created their own programs. And I know for our HR folks on the call, this is where I think it's very important to know these stories, because when I think of programs like the Income Advance program, here is a small, mighty HR team based in Vermont called Rhino Foods developing a program to support their team. There were people who are reconsidering their jobs because it was too far for them to get to work, and they didn't have money to pay transportation to get to work, or couldn't make ends meet in paying their rent. And so when Rhino Foods HR team saw this, when their organization, their leaders saw this, um, Ted Rooney, shout out to you, CEO of, founder of Rhino Foods. Um, they were like, we got to figure out something. Let's figure out how do we support our team in a way that does not subject them to predatory loans from banks, putting them in more debt. Let's figure out a way to get funds to our team so at the very core basic level, they can get to work. They can pay their rent. They can pay medical bills for their children. And so they partnered with a bank where they designed this program, and banks like Amalgamated Bank, Beneficial State Bank, Spring Bank, all B Corps, designed this income advance program where now members of their organization could go to their HR team, get an advance, pay that back in increments through their paycheck, and then they didn't have to go to not one bank. And so this gives them direct access. This created more opportunities where now that program that I'm mentioning and referring is now its own nonprofit, showing other companies that are not B Corps and B Corps what this looks like in practice, step by step, and finding a bank and creating this program within their organization. And this team in Vermont didn't even comprise of more than like 20 people. So it just shows you the sheer will of wanting to do something around justice, centered around justice, and how a company that is a B Corp can really transcend how we support our ecosystem. And now it's a nonprofit helping over hundreds of companies across the nation. That's impact.
Visionary voices, bold breakthroughs. This is Shally's Alley, where top recruiting minds spill their best kept secrets live every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Raw, unfiltered conversations on sourcing, hiring, and the future of talent, where we ask the tough questions no one else will. Tune in and level up.
That's impact.
Wow. Like, I think that's just so cool. And I think it's also the thinking outside the box of hey, this didn't exist before. So what? Let's make it work. Let's see, like, let's build it. And what a great way to it. Like, I'm gonna take it back to the business for a minute. What a
Yeah,
great way to advance your business. If your workers are showing up, if they're doing what they need to do, you can serve more customers, blah, and the
totally.
cycle is even better. So like it's a win for everyone. So why not? So
Exactly.
how
Exactly.
cool. That's very
Exactly.
cool.
And for me, to your point, even in tying it to our theme for next year's Champions Retreat, Ripples to Waves, that's a wave, right? That started as a ripple, and now this wave is taking over the nation and supporting businesses understand how to adopt this framework, right? And so, to your point, now you have loyal team that will forever be with you. Their retention rate is remarkable. Like, I don't think anyone has decided to leave because it's like it's become so much part of their life and community and family that now they're operating as a unit in a way that like these people are dedicating their lives to this work, right? And so to your point, it just creates such a level of trust. It addresses the wealth gap. It provides true economic advancement. It gives people the opportunity to feel like they have a voice in the company, even if they didn't create the thing. And so everyone wins, to your point. Everyone wins, Katie.
That's amazing. And I think, I would love to hear, I know you kind of alluded to this at the beginning. I would love to hear some of the stories of some of the programs that you've worked on and how those have impacted the companies and how what are you doing? Not to put you on the spot, but what are you doing, Hughes?
Yeah,
Tell us everything. But what are the programs that you're working on and how are those being implemented in organizations?
yeah. I mean, I'm so proud of myself, and shout out to my dear friend and colleague Mariel Martin, who also leads our racial equity work. And the two main programs that we've seen to date that has significant impact on companies is our Learning Journey program in our impact improvement program. Both programs supporting different elements of our ecosystem. And so, starting with the Learning Journey program, it's a program that I've designed really starting to focus on individuals. Because before we can start offering courses and trainings to companies and, having different folks within those companies take the training, we need to really understand the individuals that are leading these companies,
Yeah.
right? Because again, these companies are led by leaders, and those leaders come and go, right? And so the goal for us is not to just train the organization, but it's to train the leader because wherever then you go, you're bringing that same mindset with you, right? It's almost like I like to call it transferable data, right? So now you're transferring what you've learned into a different organization. And so the learning journey really focused on individual learning, really giving a true understanding. And so in its first iteration, starting back in 2022, it was just an anti-racism asynchronous training where anyone from our ecosystem could go in, take these trainings. These trainings encompassed 5 different modules, really giving historical context of these systems that we're trying to dismantle, but also why these systems are still to date having the impact in a negative way in this what you would say business world. Then we learned, we ideated and heard a lot of feedback from that first iteration. We then launched the second iteration, which started to incorporate a bit more of an application understanding of like, okay, so you got the knowledge, you have the understanding. Now, what does it mean in real time to apply this within your organization? What would that look like through case studies? And so we partnered with the Groundwater Institute, which really is an amazing organization providing, again, this groundwater understanding of the climate and how we got here. But then this application, again, in terms of the evolution of the program, really was working with partners like CREA, which is Corporate Racial Equity Alliance, which comprises of Policy Link, Just Capital, FSG, and CapEQ that really leveraged our CEO blueprint, which is like a how-to guide blueprint model that really started to give clear examples on how to apply some of these frameworks within your organization based on the learning journey approach. And to date now, which is our third iteration of the learning journey, we've shifted that content to really support the new JEDI requirement and standards. And so right now, companies within our ecosystem will be shifting from V6 to really understand how to fulfill all of the different impact topic areas within the new standards. Before this transition, it was a point system. So companies did it or could do it, and which often would create a gap where companies would probably say, we're not there yet, so I'm going to avoid doing this thing. And so I'm going to focus here on this thing. The new standard requires everyone to go through all of the impact topics. So the new iteration, the third iteration of the learning journey, has shifted its content to really focus on that new JEDI impact topic so companies can feel confident that our program can help them meet that threshold. And so right now, and real share joy, we just got approved for our fourth iteration for next year, and we're already working on that. And that will be a digitized version that will be able to scale across the entire ecosystem in terms of US and Canada. When we first started off the first iteration, we had about 75 people joined. The second iteration, we shifted the ways that we identify people to go through the learning journey. So we did it in cohorts. And so within our ecosystem, we identified all of our network leaders, all of the board members of our networks had to go through this training. Our climate justice collective had to go through this training. And also our B consultants had to go through this training because those are the most front-facing communities that engage around B Corps on our behalf.
Right.
And we wanted to make sure those communities had the right training in doing that so they're not perpetuating harm under our name. And so I helped ensure that that program gave them that foundational basis to be able to engage in that way that would really help people understand what this movement is about while also giving them the opportunity to certify and give them this pathway, if you will, to certify and to also amplify their regions, speaking from a network leader perspective. And so again, this fourth iteration will be launched next year. It will be digitized. It's meant to support the entire ecosystem because now people would have access to our platforms. And I'm really excited about that impact we've had. The Impact Improvement Program for me has been one of the cornerstones of B Lab as an organization. And huge shout out to Mario Martin for designing that program. I give her full credit for that program because it's a program that really in numbers have blown everyone's minds. I mean, to date, she's worked with so it's in its third iteration. So that means it's third year, right? 35 companies, 70 individuals. And we're not talking about just medium and small size companies. We've had companies like Patagonia join. We've had companies on a larger, I guess you would say, amount of employee wise scale participate in these programs, including in the learning journey. This year, we also had Patagonia and some amazing other organizations join these organizations. But the Impact Improvement Program and going back into it offered partners 7 main topics, which were hiring diversity and retaining diverse staff, employee ownership for workers, providing workers with living wages, fair chance hiring, wealth benefits for employees, board diversity and leadership, and hiring for underrepresented populations through strategic partnerships. And that was broken into an 8-week course, and each course was led by different experts and facilitators that really helped hone in. And we partnered with some amazing organizations like Pay Scale and Living Wage for Us, to really center our programs around factual data, data that really shows how companies can truly change and shift the playing field when it comes to these practices. And one of the biggest accomplishments to date that I'm super proud of is, the living wage, the fair chance hiring, and the wealth benefit for workers was were the sessions that saw the 90% satisfaction in terms of like clear next steps and what to do in their company in order for them to shift policies and practices. One of the main companies that I'm super proud of, that we love to highlight is OCA Aquatics. When OCA Aquatics, a small, mighty Florida-based B Corp, joined the Impact Improvement Program, they shifted their company from being solely owned by the founders to 100% employee owned. After going through our program,
That's
they
cool.
decided that they're going to give equity to every single employee. And now it's 100% employee owned, all through the understanding and going through this income advance program. So when we see again the impact is astronomical because
Right.
now if I'm a person from a marginalized community or from a community that often is forgotten about, I have equity in a company, something that now I can put in my will and pass down to my children. That's generational wealth. Right? So these are the types of businesses, these are the types of programs, these are the types of impact the programs are having because companies are starting to understand that it's also in their benefit when they're doing this. It's in their benefit, it's good business, their bottom lines go up, their staff is loyal more than ever, their stakeholders support them throughout whatever's going geopolitically. And the reality is that you start to understand what your legacy as a brand, as a company really starts to look like, right? And this is why companies like Patagonia, when they decided to divvy up their entire company to 100 nonprofits, right? That was because they understood the impact the legacy of Patagonia will have beyond the leaders that created and started this movement, right? And for us, that's what the B Corp movement is about. It's about creating legacy around impact that truly matters on our planet. And for me, I think just making money on the side is just the icing on the cake, you know. And so the reality is there's a way to do good business, and that's why that is our ethos and that is our motto, if you will. But the way to do that is through collective and educational acquiring of information that then informs that decision to then create these practices.
I think we're going to have a part two because we haven't even started talking about the climate part.
Exactly. Oh,
Um,
and I forgot to mention, climate was a part of and is a part of the learning journey. So again, when I mentioned the climate collective, that group that went through the learning journey, that's because the climate team, and shout out to Kylie and Clementina, have developed some really robust tools and assets that really speaks to how companies can fulfill the climate requirement, but through these tools that also help them understand how to engage with community front lines through the Principles for Partnership program that they've designed and all the different types of projects that they've been engaged with that truly shows our community, you know, how to engage forward. I mean, we have our team right now at COP30, you know, speaking on behalf of climate. You know, we've done so many to date partnerships and collaborations with so many different organizations, including 1% for the Planet, on different topics. So again, our work around climate is also so critical because the planet is all of our homes, right? And if companies are not paying attention to this, then guess what? You don't have a business because now when things are not being able to be produced, when you know you start to see these massive shifts in you know the weather and what's happening around the world, you start to understand that maybe we need to be paying a whole lot more attention and understanding our footprint better and understanding these emissions better and understanding, you know, what does real climate justice, you know, look like from a perspective of communities that are first impacted by these disasters and left to figure out those things for everyone else in terms of solutions, right? We've seen it with Hurricane Katrina. We've seen it with so many different other areas. And often those communities that are identified as marginalized or, you know, specific communities that are often forgotten about, they're the ones who are having to MacGyver their way in figuring out how to protect themselves. And often those practices then lead to national global scale, right? And so, climate and racial equity goes hand in hand
Well,
to wrap that piece up.
we, we've been saying for a while, like at this point, it's by choice. Like you do feel like things are so far out of your control, but there are things that you can do. Even just listening. I think you've talked about Patagonia a million times because you're getting ready for this cold front that's about to come in Brooklyn.
That too.
Um, and so while you're looking for coats, might as well support the brand. But the
Indeed.
other part of it is understanding that you do have a choice. Like, you know, we no longer will buy Pilgrim's Pride chicken because of what they've done, their support of a political campaign that doesn't align with me personally. And that's is hard to do when you live in a place like Waco that's small, that has a place that has to employ you. You don't have a lot of jobs, but you do have those choices and you can make those things aware. Somebody asked me, where do I want to go? I travel quite a bit. Katee travels more than I do. And they said, where do you want to go next? And I was like, Venice. And they said, why Venice? And I said, I don't think it's going to be there in 50 years. And they were like, why? And I was like, global warming. And then you always want to say, come on, you've heard of it. Like what, you, you don't know what that, okay. So it's like, but what is impressive about the things that you are saying, and is that there are companies that are doing it, and so many people are saying that they can't make the change because of what's going on in the political climate, and we have choices. There are a lot of organizations. You have the choice, and you also are seeing right now people are disengaged. It's at work, and a lot of people are just simply not proud. The biggest hirers are the ones that people are the most embarrassed of. And it is, how do you do that? It is, suggesting there's a different alternative that's not going to affect your bottom line and can make it even better by adding these things as benefits. I think those listening from the HR perspective, we really need to get together and recalibrate on what benefits are for an organization, and divide it between personal benefits, long-term benefits, and the benefits to the actual organization and how you are helping those organizations. Especially if you have equity, it's like understanding what the overall impact is, because quite frankly, I think, they, like I say they, I don't know who they are, but we have lost touch and not educated ourselves on what's really going on, to the point where the reason that people can, used to get stabbed in the back, the reason we're all getting stabbed in the face is because people are so uneducated or not clear on what's actually happening, that someone can say, I'm stealing money from you, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I really just don't know what to do. And they stole it faster than you were able to come up with a solution. ChatGPT is not going to help you. Like, you are going to have to educate yourself. And again, what I do appreciate as well, we saw a misconception of this work, as well as so many people thought that you had to change hearts without understanding. No, we just have to change the systems first, like understand and have a system to help people as they go on their personal journey. Understand, because nobody can do that as fast enough. I can't make you care, but we can't implement systems that can still affect the bottom line and affect you as an organization and personally. It will come as you put these things into place. And if not, you get to find out faster where this is not the right fit for some people at the organization.
Yeah, and and you mentioned something that I think is super critical, and I'm speaking from a US perspective, not even Canada, but US perspective when it comes to the landscape that we're living in right now. Like, executive orders does not alter existing law.
No.
It is not law. And one thing we reinforce and inform our B Corps, especially when a lot of this rhetoric, a lot of this heightened tension has been targeting companies like B Corps, or individuals who are advocating for what's right, is we have to remind them of that why, right? If a company's DEI program was legal last year, it's legal today, right? Until court decision changes that law, it's still, we're moving forward, right? And we're still in compliance with everything. So again, it's just really understanding the purpose, and then really taking that to a point where it's rooted in love, right? Because we're not doing anything to combat or saying vice versa, right? Like this is not the exchange, the energy, the frequency we're as a movement looking to create. We've been doing this before it was a trend. We've been doing this before it was a thing that companies should do because these are people who understand the importance of the planet, of communities. And so, I did want to go back just really quickly because, as I keep looking here at just the share impact the impact improvement program had, I realized there were still some numbers I wanted to share. And this was just based off the first initial 2 years. So again, there's a true understanding of the impact these programs are having. So 28 B Corps serving 800 workers led to the following. 289 workers were impacted by their companies adopting a living wage. 264 workers got access to wealth building tools. 677 workers got access to financial literacy resources. 49 students from historically Black colleges and universities received apprenticeships and participated in B Corps, which created job opportunities for those students. 49 workers were impacted by the removal of background checks. 20 workers were impacted by the removal of credit checks. 19 were provided with financial wellness resourcing and education. 138 were impacted by the adoption of skills tests tied directly to the role versus using educational level or a resume to assess their ability. And that was just the first 2 initial years. And so we're still distilling the third year because that's this year. But the reality is that, again, these programs that I'm so proud of uplifting are programs that are just one of so many more we are now understanding our community needs and are designing to really not only support them in that transition to the new standards, but really to help shape what this movement looks like as a collective, right? Because the B Lab movement is beyond just taking this certification and you getting this beautiful logo placed on your product, right? It's really about, all right, so now I'm certified. How do I get to work? Right. And it's really focusing on that movement element. And that movement element happens in tandem with frontline community. It happens in tandem with different stakeholders that really have been doing this work, but in a collective, we've seen it go a lot further. So I'm really proud of the programs that we've put out. We also have engaged in so many different conferences, and I myself led the racial equity track at SoCap last year, where we were really able to uplift our programs in that regard and space. I just got back from South Africa talking to our B Lab Africa B Corps in that region around these programs. Now we're cross regionally are talking about how do we adopt these programs in different areas around the world. I know our climate team had an amazing call today with B Lab China and really figuring out, how we can really start to use and adopt some of these programs that Kylie and her team, Clementina, have designed to support that region and figuring out how to, combat some of those challenges that they're dealing with. But again, it's because we operate as a movement and we operate in a way that allows us to see how B Corps can lead, and all we're doing is just connecting and convening. And so, it's one of the highlights of my careers. It don't really feel like work. The only time it feels like work is when I'm having to explain to someone that's not in the B Corp space, what it is that we do and why this type of work is so critical. And it's been a journey. It's been a beautiful journey.
Well, I think the piece that is, you know, what I'm hearing from you and just what I know about B Corps is exactly what you just said. This isn't a hey, you must do, or hey, it's the law, or any, it's if you want to be aware of what's going on in the world around you, if you are aware of what's going on in the world around you, if you are, conscious of all of these pieces that do impact every single one of us on a daily basis, this is something that's just very critical and something that all of us can, I think, subscribe to say, yeah, this is important to me as well. What do I do, or how do I get involved, or how can I learn? Or, for me, I know we talked about this before we started the recording of just yeah, I love when I see, oh, hey, it's a B Corp, and I'm more inclined to spend money in a company that I know is a B Corp. And I want to just call out for the listeners, if you want to know if a company that you like, or if you want to find a company that is a B Corp that you can support, there's an entire listing on the B Corp website that you can look up pretty much any topic, any food, clothing, etc. So it definitely ways for you to make an impact today. Um, but I also think it's something to bring into your organization if you can.
Exactly. Our website is so robust. It offers exactly what you're saying, Katee. A list, an extensive list, all of our B Corps and what their services and products entail, and who to get in contact with. We also have, our Beehive, which is our community where, B Corps and leaders can engage to really be able to, and I can send you that information and you can share out with our audience. But the Beehive is a community where a lot of that conversation between B Corps and leaders are happening, whether it's around programming, whether it's around in seeking support from one another, collaborating with one another, and then for those non-B Corps, the first place to start is take the assessment, see how your current company sits,
Right.
and that will show you whether you need to improve or not. And, we're not here to sell anything. We're here to only provide a space and platform where companies already feel this calling and want to be part of this movement. And so they join, right? And so it's similar to our programs. You go on our website, you'll see to date the impact the programs have had. And as we continue to develop these programs, we'll continue to keep updating our website with access to those programs. At the moment, these programs are tailored for B Corps, but with the goal of opening it up to non B Corps as well. But we are very intentional in how we launch our programs. We've started from all of the iterations with small containers and pilots because we need to be informed and learn and ideate and pivot and understand where the gaps are before we can offer it to a larger scale. And that's what really provides a high level and quality of programs because we're not trying to just create anything for someone to be like, oh, I did the thing, checkbox, right? It's really bringing you through the process. And again, I think another way to engage with us is to be active on our socials and seeing, we just launched an amazing podcast. Shout out to our Marcoms team as well that is engaging specifically with B Corps and leaders within that community around the impact it's having. We're also again developing these digitized programs. Our certification team are looking for different pathways to supporting non-B Corps and getting them on the track. We also have our level program that to date, I think has, I mean, the impact it's had is remarkable, and really diversifying this ecosystem by identifying women of color that are leading businesses and really having impact in their community. This is, I believe, the fifth year the level program has been in existence, and I think there's been over 80 B Corps that has gone through this program,
Okay.
and got the training and mentorship that allows them to get certified. So, every aspect of our team across the organization is doing phenomenal work, So shout out to everyone at the B Lab level because the reality is it is a lot of work, but the work is work that they all love. We all love that it's something we do in community with our B Corps. And so yeah, so that's what I got for you.
I think you're going to get hit up on your careers webpage as well after this episode that you might have a few HR folks that are thinking, hey, what jobs do you have open? Which is awesome. So Hugues, tell us, what is one thing that you want folks to have heard? There were a thousand things, but what is one thing that you want people to take with them from this episode?
Have you ever wondered what really makes a generation tick? Who gets to pick the name? And why the slang keeps changing? Don't worry, I can help. My name's Dr. Megan Grace. On hashtag Gen Z, I share the voices and experiences of Generation Z, how they're different from other generations, what moves them, and why they do what they do. In each episode, we go beyond the buzzwords and the stereotypes to dive into real conversations and the insights that matter to making intergenerational collaboration a reality. You can catch hashtag Gen Z on the Work to Find podcast network and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Take with you a few things. The main one is really identify your why. I can't stress this enough. Don't just feel inspired, feel a moral obligation to ask yourself as a business leader why you are in business. Because if it's just to sell the thing, admittedly say that to your team, and that's who you are.
Right.
But if you are doing something, do it from a purpose of and root it in love. and understand where and why that love is so important to you. Share that with your team and your community, build that trust, and then realize, how do I continue to move forward in an impactful way? And then I would say the second thing I would love the audience to leave with is check out our website, check out the assessment, see how you stand.
Right.
Allow yourself to see, where do I need to improve going into the new year, right? A lot of people have these, what is it when the new year come and they're like, I have these goals. What is
Resolutions, New Year's
resolutions, right?
Yeah.
What is your new year resolution for your business after you've taken that assessment? What will you change, or at the very least be conscious of, that allows you to start or spark a conversation around, right? And then the third thing is reach out to us. Reach out, ask questions. I am super active on LinkedIn and all of my different social media handles, in answering any question around the new standards, what the B Corp movement is about, what any of these programs that I've mentioned is about, and just anything that relates to supporting you understand, how do I get to a place of collective community building. Because I say collective community building because those engagements allow long-term sustainable solutions to what you're trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
I can easily say, try to do this because it worked for me. You can try it. It could potentially work, but will it work 2 years from now, 5 years from now, right? So really learn and be informed by community, and enjoy what you're doing. I feel like there's so much tension right now happening in the world. There's so much happening around us. Remind yourself the joy this brings. Remind yourself the love it makes you feel. And that's why for me, it's always a pleasure connecting with amazing folks like you, because as you can see in having this conversation, like this is pure joy for me. This is something that I'm going to feel very proud of when my daughter, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 5 years from now, research me and seeing the impact that I've had, and she will hopefully be proud of what it is that I've led, and that for me brings a level of joy when I wake up every day and I connect with B Corps, or I go out and I speak on behalf of B Lab, or engage with different external stakeholders. That to me brings a level of joy, because it then helps me always reaffirm what my purpose is, and that purpose, again, in business, goes a long way. And people and those who consume your product, those who consume your service, they know that, right? You buy those same exact B Corp products because there's something that you feel connected with,
Yeah.
right? There's something that makes you feel like, I'm going to buy that Purely Elizabeth. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that Cabot. I'm going to buy that, Athletic Gap. And that reality is because there's something that connects you with it, right? So just operate from there. And yeah, I think that's what I say audience to leave with.
So, Jackye, I just figured out that Hugues can be a co-host on the Inclusive AF podcast, because he does the same thing that you do, which is there's not one thing, there's 10 things from the episode. So good job, Hugues. Now you're taking up for Jackye. Yeah, I gotta rein her in
I
sometimes
love it.
too.
I
Yeah.
love it. I'm
Jack,
I'm more than happy to come back whenever you'd like.
awesome. Jack, what you got?
Well, first, it'll probably take your kids like 20 years before they actually appreciate the work that they do. They will.
There.
They'll get there. They'll get there.
Yep.
The other part is like, stop pretending not to see what you see. Like, that's the thing that gets me so, like, quit trying to act like what's happening right in front of you. You're gaslighting yourself when you're saying that you're having like you're not a part of negative impact by like working or supporting or purchasing things with organizations. Like, be responsible for at the very least, look at the things that you can control, have impact on that, and support people that align with your personal mission and values is one. But the other part is just letting people know there is a way of doing this work and having the impact that you want to have. Stop bowing down to things that haven't happened yet in fear. And
fear mongering is real.
I mean, I have so many people that I've heard of saying things or doing things, even myself, like, oh, should I say that? Should I not say that? Which is weird. It's going to come out anyway.
Mhm.
But be proud of the work that you're doing. And in order to do that, you're going to have to partner with organizations that align with their mission. And in order to do that, you're going to have to actually research and find out like who you're supporting. I know we talk about like vote because you make impact, but you also vote with your dollars and with your footsteps. And if you think it doesn't, your vote, it negates itself if you are then supporting an organization that supports the ideals that you don't support personally.
Mhm.
Ooh, I said it. Put that.
You said it.
There
Said
you
it.
go.
Like
There you
your
go.
vote is of no good if you then support, some big box retailers that are keeping people oppressed. It just
And
is.
look, without not to cut you off, Jackye, but without naming names, we've seen how those big box retailers felt the pinch and felt the hurt
Yes.
when they rolled back. And
Yeah.
who came in and collected new clients and customers and saw people commit to their brand. Again, I don't need to
And
say
we'll
the
see
names.
them all
The
at the
proof
ribbon cutting of the East Wing. We will see them all.
the
Yeah.
proof is in the pudding, and the people, similar to what Katee mentioned earlier, resonate with what they like and resonate with where they feel welcomed and a level of community and a level of safety, right? And once you, as a business, don't remember your why because it was
Right.
performative and you shift, guess what shifts with it? All of your clientele,
Mhm.
all of your business. So, again, the proof is in the people's choice, and the people's choice has spoken. When
Right.
you do things that is performative, there goes your business.
That's right.
I think that's the piece for me that resonated throughout this entire conversation is that you as an individual human make choices every single day, and how you spend your money, vote, show
Yep.
up in the world, period. And how you show up in the world, period, it will be remembered in 10, 15 years. And I think we're facing this reckoning right now in a lot of different pockets. And retail, big box retail, politicians, just
Yep.
companies in general. So knowing your why, but I think also thinking about how you will be remembered in history. And and not that all of us are going to be on some plaque in some museum somewhere, but at the same time, what are your kids going to think? What are your grandkids going to think? For me, it's my niece and nephews and their kids and whatnot, and that's critical and that's important to, I think, every single one of us as an individual human.
Critical. And that's why for me that logo is more than just being a member of this movement. It really
Right.
represents what I want my daughter to see and saying, wow, like even from when I was young, I remember seeing this logo everywhere. And
Yeah.
that is a psychological shift in just her engaging with products differently, services differently, the planet differently, herself differently,
Mhm.
And that for me is where I think we all have a choice. And those choices impact generations to come. And
That's
Absolutely.
right.
your business in that perspective impacts communities for generations to come. And so
Okay, folks, I need to call it. We are going to have a part two. Don't you worry. I need to call it, or
Probably a part.
our executive producer is going to kill us all. Um, but Hughes, thank you so very much. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can reach out via LinkedIn. My full name, Hugues Sygney Jr. Um, you can also reach out to me via Instagram, Natty Dreadlock. That's NATTYDREDLOC. You can also, yeah, once you reach out to me via LinkedIn, you'll have access to my email and Calendly. I accept quick coffee chats. And so if there's a specific burning question related to this podcast or just a question in general, feel free to shoot me a response over at LinkedIn and give me up to 48 hours to respond to you.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton.
Bye.